Nora Dekeyser, welcome to the Rich Equation podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I am so excited for this conversation. You're like a little Swiss Army knife. So I feel like this conversation is going to go all different kinds of places. So how have you been?
I have been doing well. The last time, should we share how we met?
Yes, 100%.
So we met each other right after Joe Dispenza, a week-long advanced meditation retreat. We were on the plane. We were in this like energy and realm of just such an open heart and curiosity. And then I saw the Joe Dispenza bracelet that you had on. And then that was from New York to LA. So that was a 5.5 hour flight. I don't think we stopped talking about business and life and relationships. So since then, I honestly went there because I was in a space of deep healing with myself. And I had been in a 4-year-long relationship. I really was trying to figure out how I co-created that relationship to not work and how I could learn from that so that I can learn from my mistakes from the past, not even mistakes, but just who I was then and how I could grow to become who I really wanted to be. And that was hard. That was really hard to sit with myself and take personal responsibility of what I created. And so I did a lot of stuff to work on myself. And I feel like I'm on the other side of that now. Not that we ever finish. I think we're always going to keep growing. But I think I've really come back home to myself. So that's how I've been.
Well, as you can see, audience, this is why I have Nora on the podcast. I feel like it was an immediate connection. She saw my bracelet and we just got lost in all kinds of things for 5 hours, like she said. So I want to really give you some honor for like doing the work and just the way that you just shared that and how much ownership you take, I think is why you're able to be so successful and help others on the path, because you're doing the work, you're setting the example. What were some things that you learned along the journey of that process that you didn't expect?
Oh my gosh, that's a big question. I think the first thing that comes to mind is my resistance to wanting to heal, which sounds weird because I think anyone listening to this podcast, a part of their mind is saying, no, I want to heal. I want to grow. I want to be as successful as possible. I want to be as wealthy in all areas of my life as possible. Like, why would anyone ever have resistance to growing and getting the success that they're looking for? But I think when you're actually in it and someone says to you like, oh, here's some more work to do. And I had a therapist I worked with. She was actually me and my ex's couples therapist. And the way couples therapy often works is you do an individual session before you begin to share what's actually happening in the relationship so you don't sugarcoat it in front of your partner. And she looked at me after that first individual session and she was like, okay, so we're going to need to do a lot of individual therapy before we can begin our couples therapy.
You have a lot of stuff.
You have some shit. And I remember when she said that, I was like, wait, what? I had been a professional matchmaker for 5 years at that point. I had started my own coaching business, helping people learn about who they are and why they're here and how to love themselves and how to achieve their goals. I had read a million books. I had gone to therapy. I had gone to seminars. I had gone to Tony Robbins. And then this therapist says, okay, so we're going to have to do individual work. And I was like, no, that doesn't make sense. I've already done it. Like, there's nothing more to do. So what really surprised me was how much there is to uncover and take off and reprogram, and how much time that takes. Because I think something that a lot of coaches unfortunately do, and people in this kind of self-development work, they market this to be like a snap of a finger, boom, you're changed, life is great, you can get rich really fast, or you can have the happiness you want really fast. And although I think you can change your state in a second, I think it takes daily practice and daily habits and really falling in love with the process, learning about who you are and who you want to be, and implementing that daily to really make change. And so that was my biggest aha moment, was the resistance I had when someone would say, hey, here's more. And then to turn that around, it was really just falling in love with my daily practices, and my daily habits and my daily conversations that I have with myself. And that's what really was the turning point for me. It wasn't one moment or one therapy session or one coaching session.
I love that. I had a coach one time tell me, new level, new devil.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's really interesting. Like, we always think in many parts of our life, not just in personal development, but like there's a destination, and that at some point when we do the work, we've arrived, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that there's always something to uncover. So tell me, like, when you say you've kind of enjoyed the process of like, okay, well, now what's showing up for me now, or tell me a little bit more about that practice. Like, what's the narrative in the head? Mm-hmm. What does that sound like? As you uncover more, that you find that is like, ooh, man, I didn't, there's a creak there's something that sounds a little noisy. How do I deal with that? What does that sound like for you?
Yeah. The way it shows up for me is I'm my best friend.
Oh, I love this.
I truly am. And it sounds, I think sometimes these concepts can get watered down when we see Instagram quotes about like, love yourself before you can love someone else. It's kind of, when we see it too many times, our inner critic says like, I call bullshit, that's dumb, right? But if there's a difference between seeing it and reading it and being it and feeling it and actually having that relationship with yourself. So what does it look like for me? It's when I have a good day, my inner self is like, I love you, girl. We're doing great. That self-talk, that's just my best friend talking to me. And when I have a bad day, it's the exact same self-talk. It's like, oh my gosh, girl, look, what's going on? I love you. Let's talk. I'm here for you. I can tell you're anxious because you ate way faster than you normally eat, or because you haven't slowed down all day to take a breath. Let's slow down. Let's talk. Let's see what's coming up for you. And it can take minutes, and then it passes. But most people spend years running from that emotion. And no one's ever died. Yeah, exactly. Numbing. And what I love to remind myself is no one's ever died from an emotion, but a lot of people have died from running from their emotions. And so there's no emotion that scares me anymore. What scares me is how much time is lost by me trying to run from them or numb from them or distract myself from them.
Have you always been a meditator?
No, I wanted to be. So when I was a professional matchmaker to people who wanted to be private about their dating life, a lot of my clients were very successful CEOs, celebrities, big time people in terms of their career. And one thing I noticed was most of them meditated. And so I was 22 when I started that job. And so I was like, okay, I want to be like my clients. Like, they have figured something out in terms of career success. And so I tried to start meditating when I was living in New York City as a matchmaker. And it was like the worst 10 minutes of my day every day. I started with Headspace and I was like, I freaking hate this. I hate this. I hate this. I hate this. But I kept trying because I saw these people that I looked up to in terms of their career doing it. But it wasn't until, when did it really start landing for me? I was trained in something called Vedic meditation, which is similar to transcendental meditation, which is just 20 minutes twice a day with a mantra. And that's when it really landed for me for some reason. I don't think there's one type of meditation that is necessarily better than the other. I just think there's certain meditations that are better for certain people than others. So I think when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And the student wasn't ready for Headspace, but me as the student with transcendental meditation, Vedic meditation, I was totally ready. And now I meditate every day, twice a day, 20 minutes. I think that habit has been here for about 1.5 years, almost 2 years. Like, truly this morning, I was in Malibu camping this morning and I meditated right when I woke up. Like, there's nothing that can stop me from doing that because it just changes my day.
What do you notice in people that, I mean, you just said that a lot of people that your clients that were successful were meditating. Do you see a big difference in people in their relationships when they meditate and they don't meditate? Is there alternatives to meditation in how people show up that way? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I think that there's a huge difference when someone has some type of mindfulness practice, whether they call it that meditation or breath work or journaling, but something that gets your vagus nerve, which is the director of your autonomic nervous system. Basically what that means is your system is regulated. When you know how to regulate your nervous system, you are able to take a step back when something is dysregulating to your nervous system. And when it comes to relationships, those are usually the places in our life that are most dysregulating. Because if your partner says,
isn't that funny?
Yeah. But it makes sense because we experience trauma in relationships. It's pretty hard to experience trauma by ourselves. Like, not many people are like, I just woke up and I just have trauma by myself. If they're thinking in their mind, for sure, but that's their relationship with themselves. So if your partner says we need to talk, your nervous system is going to go into fight, flight, freeze, appease mode. That's a little bit scary, right? So you're dysregulated in that moment. But if you can take a couple big deep breaths and regulate your body, regulate your nervous system, you'll go back into something called social engagement phase in polyvagal theory. And that's when you can actually socially engage in a loving and kind and safe and respectful way with your partner. But if you don't have the awareness, which I think meditation offers you, or just any type of practice that regulates your nervous system, you'll immediately you'll continue that conversation in fight, flight, freeze. And you'll be like, we need to talk. Yeah, we do. I have something to tell you. And it will just continue that type of relationship, which is really difficult to get out of if both people are dysregulated.
I felt like in my life, there are relationships both personally and professionally. And I think as a leader of a business or as a coach, I'm sure you've experienced this, is like there's the world we live in now is high stress. You know, I'm gonna put it in quotes because it's in our minds, but you know, we live in this like world where we must be stressed, we must be hustling. You know, we don't need to be connected with ourselves. We got to be hustling all the time, and the speed in which everything has to move can cause a lot of anxiety and stress and tension and let's call it reactiveness, right? And I started realizing, I'm like, well, this sucks. This just doesn't feel good. And it was hard for me to start talking about, I guess I've been meditating my whole life, but not really, like you said, kind of what stuck, right? Like what really worked, let's say, because there's a lot of ways to meditate. Not all of them kind of sync with you, let's say. But once you start working on you, I think everything around you starts to change also. It's like, you feel like, oh, well, I need to outsmart this person in an intellectual conversation to make me feel better about the dynamic of this relationship. All of that is crap. And then you start meditating or you start focusing on, you know, mindfulness or how you are. I loved how you said that. Like, how am I being, right? Everything starts to change. It's really quite amazing. It's hard for me to explain, right? So, yeah.
It's hard to... That's what I mean. Like it's hard to explain until you've felt it.
Yes.
Because when we're explaining it, there's a little bit of ego involved, right? Like even what you described, like, okay, I need to be more intellectual in this conversation so that I can win the ego, right? Ego. And so even when we're explaining it, who's listening is usually our ego, because we live in an ego-based world. So of course, it's going to be a part of us that comes up often, and our ego isn't bad, but when we only live from our ego, then we're going to be really disconnected from our heart, from our soul, from our authenticity, from the parts of us that feel really safe. And I think when you're able to feel these practices instead of just read about the practices, that's when you can really connect with other parts of you that are outside of your ego.
Yeah. And I also feel like, and I want to go into relationships a little bit with you, more personal relationships, because I feel like for me personally, I don't know if I was ever really taught to have proper quality relationship, you know? And I think like I got married at 26. I've been married almost 10 years now. And I don't think I was really a good relationship husband, probably for the first 6 or 7 years of my life, my marriage, because you just don't know. No one teaches you how to do it. In fact, you learn all the good and bad habits from your parents and project that onto your relationship. Mm-hmm. Tell us where to go. How should we be thinking about intimate relationships in our life? You know, I've been really spending a lot of time about, you said awareness, which is a pillar of the Rich equation, and relationships, which is the second pillar. Mm-hmm. And I've been really spending more time on this idea or this thought that like everything is about the relationships that we have. And it's not just about like having friends. You know, what is the quality of a relationship? What does that really mean? And what feeling are we creating, I suppose, in the relationships we have, and what's the meaning that we have? So let's get lost in this.
I love that. So when it comes to like, tell us where to go in terms of how do you know how to do relationships? You're right. We most of us are not consciously thinking about how to do relationships. We are repeating our conditioning from the environment we grew up in.
Yes.
And so how do you change that and actually learn about how you want to show up in relationships? The first step is awareness, right? Yeah. So becoming aware of, wait, where did I learn these habits? And what are my habits in relationships? And how do I show up in relationships? So just becoming the witness of how you've co-created every relationship in your life. And oftentimes how we do one thing is how we do everything. So you'll start to see a lot of patterns once you become aware of that. So I think that's the first step. I think the second step is noticing if you like it or not, right? So you might really, this is a really tangible piece of homework that everyone should do. I highly recommend this. It's changed all of my relationships in my life. I used to be friends with everyone. Anyone I met, I was like, they're my new best friend. Like I had so many best friends and I was so disconnected from myself because I was giving myself to everyone else. And I didn't even have awareness that that wasn't serving me until I did. And then I was like, okay, I'm tired. I can't be friends with everyone. So then the second step was asking myself, do I enjoy this or not? Is this bringing me energy or draining my energy? And so I made a list of the top 10 most important people in my life. So everyone listening to this,
this is good.
Make this exact list. It's super powerful. And when you're making this list, know that no one will ever see this list. So if there's a part of your mind that's like, oh, I should put my mom because like she should be important to me. You don't want to have a life of shoulds, because then you'll shit all over yourself, right? You want to have a life of, I love this. I want this. I'm grateful for this, right? So just be honest with yourself. No one's going to see this list. Write down the top 10 most important people that you enjoy spending time with, that you gain energy from spending time with. So if mom isn't on that top 10, that's okay. You still love mom. She's still very important to you. But maybe when you spend time with mom, you feel really drained. And that's okay. You can have acceptance and awareness of that. You can start working on that. But right now we're just focusing on who are the top 10 people in your life that bring you energy, that you love spending time with. And when you make this list, you can leave some open spaces for the type of person you potentially want to call in or attract. So when I did this list, my number one was actually God. And I, that's really important to me. For some people, they might call it something different, but I was like, oh my gosh, I have not been spending any time with something bigger than myself. Like that's a big reason why I feel disconnected. So I put number one is God. Number two was an open space for just a type of best friend that I was really wanting to attract. And then I put my brother and some other people. And then I had a couple more open spaces, and my entire life has changed in terms of my relationships because now I'm really intentional about who I spend time with. I made a second tier of 10 people of people that I love and are important to me, but like, I don't feel really that great around. And I just was like, hey, it's okay that I love these people, but I don't have to people please them 24/7 and stretch myself thin, because the people on the top 10 list are really the people I'm going to spend a lot more time with and be a lot more intentional with. So I recommend.
Does that have to be reciprocal? Do you
No.
find, or it's all about your want, your vibration, and what you're trying to attract? Has nothing to do with whether or not they agree or they're on the same list.
Yeah, because a lot of people make a mistake when they make this list, thinking like, well, my mom really likes spending time with me. I don't know why I'm harping on mom. I love my mom. She's on my top 10. Mom, if you're listening. but I mean, there's other friends.
It's a good example because I think a lot of people, I'm glad you used the example. Because a lot of people probably assume that like, well, if I need to put my my brother or my cousin or my this or my mom. Yeah.
And honestly, when you do this, you give yourself more space to show up for your brother or your cousin or your mom more lovingly, because you're not stretched thin and you're not feeling like you're in a conditional, obligatory relationship with mom. When you do have the moment where you realize, hey, mom is a little bit lower on my list, and that's okay. It will actually make you want to show up for mom more because you aren't feeling that inauthentic codependent pull to just be someone for something just because you're supposed to. It'll make you want to be there for her when you choose to spend intentional time with her. So really the whole reason for this list is just to get intentional about yourself, about who, when you're around them, feels good and who, when you're around them, doesn't feel good. And then moving forward with the people who feel really good and the people who don't, really working on that relationship so that you can start to figure out what's happening where the relationship isn't feeling as fulfilling for you. So those would be my first step, having awareness,
love that.
making a list of intentional people who really bring you energy, and the people who drain your energy, just accepting that, hey, yeah, this person, I feel drained when I'm around them, and lowering them down a little bit on the list. Again, they will never see the list. And then the third step is to really show up for the people who do bring you a lot of energy. And sometimes, I remember when I first made this list, Brene Brown was like number 4 on my list, because I listened to her constantly. She brought me a lot of energy. It felt really good. So I just kept soaking up my relationship, obviously not in person, but just soaking up my relationship with Brene until 6 months later, I was like, okay, I got my stuff from Brene. That's great. Now I have an open space on my top 10 for maybe a real in-person friend. But it's really just you being intentional with yourself about, hey, what brings me energy? What drains my energy? And how can I create a life around that so that I can bring my fullest self to life?
I love all of that. I think you hit a couple of really important things. Number one, I feel like it's so smart to leave spaces. Mm-hmm. Like there's part of me was like, okay, well, who are my 10? And then I have to fill all of them. But to create space and leave it open for people that you don't even know yet, or perhaps, it's all about attraction, right? The law of attraction is like, if that's the energy you want and you already have 10, well, then that's it. Like you're not creating space for anything more. I love that. And the second thing that hit me as you were talking was like, these are not people that you have to know. Like, or they don't have to necessarily know you. And that's so true. I think there's people that people listen to on podcasts or on books or whatever that pour into them that are like, they give me energy. Doesn't matter if they know me or not. And that's so true, right? Because it's all about you. It's not about them.
Yep.
I love that.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. I think my number 4 was I wanted to attract a friend. A lot of my friends look up to me and ask me for advice because I'm a coach and I help people gain success in certain areas of their life. But I was really like, I want a friend that I look up to, and that's like much more successful than me in business. And like weeks later, I connected with this woman that is definitely more successful for me, more successful in terms of some areas of her business than me. And I was like, wait, what? 2 weeks later, now I have this new friend. And I told her, I was like, hey, I put this on my list. I was looking for some. And she was like, that's amazing. And she's now one of my best friends. So it's interesting when you open up space, because you're saying no to things that don't serve you. You get to say yes to the things that really do.
And let's pivot a little bit to business and strategy, because I think you with that whole mindset of really thinking about what you want, you're able to attract all of these things into your life. And you just gave a really good example. Your business is thriving. Mm-hmm. You're attracting all these clients from all different parts of your mission. And so tell us about how that's happened. Mm-hmm. Where's that going? And what's happening next?
Yeah. Ooh, good question. Okay, so how did I start my business? I was a professional matchmaker to people who wanted to be private about their dating life for 5 years. About 3 years into that, I started realizing, hey, any business is a solution to someone's problems. And I don't think matchmaking is the solution. There's 8 billion people in the world. It's not a lack of matches. And so I started getting really curious, hey, what is the solution to my clients' problems? And I thought about going back to school, become a therapist or become a coach. And I was trained by Tony Robbins and his coach, John Grinder. So I decided to go the coaching route. So started my business in that, excuse me, well, hold on. 4 years ago. And that grew really quickly. I think because of my reputation as a matchmaker, because of my passion for my customers and my clients, I just really cared about them getting results. A lot of people after working with me were getting married, were finding love within themselves, were feeling more confident. So my business was entirely referral based for the first couple of years. And I loved it. It was amazing. But my Achilles heel was, how do I scale? Because there's only one of me and I only have so many hours in the day. And so now I'm at a place where I'm like, okay, a lot of people come to me about dating, relationships, love, self-love, confidence, but a lot of people come to me about business and building their dream careers, building their dream life. And they're all connected because my method of working with people is really figuring out, who are you deeply? Who are you? And what do you want to do with that? Because I think a lot of people never slow down enough to ask themselves that question. And that's how they end up in relationships that aren't serving them, or how they end up having a business or a career that isn't what they want, because they haven't gotten to the core of really who they are and what their values are. So I'm really curious, like, okay, how do I position myself? How do I brand myself when the outcome can basically be anything? Better relationships, more clarity in your career, more success in your career, loving your body more, being more connected to your body, better health. It's all the same process and same method. But that avatar is kind of a world avatar, which every branding expert I talk to says like, no, you need to niche down. And I'm like, I don't know how to, because it's the same. Any person could come to me with any problem and I would do this same exact process for that person. So that is my curiosity right now. And yeah, I'm trying to figure that out.
I want to unpack that a little bit, but let me first start, because as you were asking that, I'm a little curious, because I think for me, there's one thing that when I don't know who I am, let's say, and I'm lost or I'm off, or I'm off the path, there's one thing in my life that if I get back on that, everything else falls into place. What's that for you? And or what is the advice, regardless of what I'm looking for, regardless of what I'm trying to achieve, right? Whether it's I'm looking for a partner, or I want more success with my business, what's the one thing you start with?
That's such a good question.
Right? Like there's like I don't want to call it a silver bullet because that's not fair, but it's like the first domino, the most powerful domino.
I think the first domino is safety in your own body, safety in self. Because when people are kind of like lost and confused, they're usually running really fast. We bring them back to somatic healing and trust in self. And my language for that is also trust in something bigger than yourself, whatever that means to you. When you have that safety of like, you're not alone and you don't have to do this alone. And there's something bigger outside of you that really has your back and loves you. And you can feel that somatically in your body and really come home. That's, I think, the thing that from that space, very quickly, you're like, oh wait, yeah, no, I know exactly who I am. I know exactly what I want. But we've got to slow down to speed up to get there.
I love that. You said that on a post the other day. I love that. Slow down to speed up.
What's the thing for you? If you were to answer that question.
I think for me, it is, I would have said it in a different way, but it's like, yeah, getting in touch with my body, but mostly with physical activity, because I'm sort of a kinetic type of guy. Like I like movement, and when I'm stuck, it's often when I'm still, and not still in the sense of like within. I'm still in the sense I'm not doing anything. I'm not moving. I'm not kinetic. I'm not moving energy, right? And so the first thing I run to is movement, which then gets me more in touch with how I feel about my body, or how I feel strong, or I feel confident. And then it allows me to be more still in meditation, or in reflection or awareness. So that's it for me. And then from there, everything radiates, right?
Everything falls into place. It's the definition of integrity is whole, right? So it's bringing all of these different parts of you back into one.
Ooh, that was good.
Yeah. And most people's definition of trauma nowadays, trauma was really misunderstood in the past, but now trauma is really just understood of, hey, when you're in any situation where you have to disconnect from a part of yourself to feel safe, that is traumatic. And so if we're able to bring ourselves back into integrity, AKA bring us back home, all parts of us, we say, hey, we're welcoming you back. I love you. We're here. That's when we can soar. And it's just simple from that point. But I think a lot of people are forcing and pushing and running and doing all this stuff. And that's just disconnecting them further and further away from their body, away from their soul, away from their heart. And it's all these disconnected pieces of themselves.
So let's try to solve this for you, right? Live on the podcast. So when all these different types of clients come to you and ask you for help, which one feels out of integrity?
Or
which one feels in integrity? Either one.
With me personally?
Yeah, because yes.
Okay. The people who want to learn and want to grow feel really in integrity with me. I've had lots of people referred to me that I won't say names, but like that we all know, but they're like, okay, Nora, just give me the answer. And then like, if we have the answer, get the solution, we'll probably just stop working with each other halfway through. And I'm like, wait, what? That's like, when you get that solution, that's when more growth happens. That's when more understanding of who you are happens. So the ones that
we just talked about, new level, new devil.
Yeah, exactly. And the ones that feel out of integrity are the ones who just want the quick fix because they're still running. And the ones who are like, I don't want to run anymore. I want to learn who I am and have sovereignty and autonomy in myself by working with you. Those feel super in integrity with me.
Yeah. I feel like it's hard for a lot of people to stop.
Yeah. Because
like,
look at
really stop.
Look at the water we're drinking. Look at our society. It says go faster, go quicker. If you buy this pill, you'll have this thing, or if you buy this chair, it's just this quick mentality. And so it's countercultural. It's the opposite of our conditioning to say, hey, if you actually slow down and connect with your heart, that is when everything will happen for you. But I also think if you believe that, you're a rebel, and I think you're a badass, and I think you will have so much more success if you allow yourself to do this new way of thinking.
I don't think I really understood this until recently. And I still fall into the trap of like slow down to go fast. This is really an important message. This may be the title of our podcast today, because I feel like it's so counterintuitive, even though it's so obvious, right? Like the thinking, the space to think, the downloads that you achieve when you're slowing down or resting or relaxing or on vacation. There's like a lot of science behind this stuff too. Is that the chemistry of your body changes, the hormone levels change, the creativity that gets enhanced when we rest, when we slow down. And then we're like, okay, well, we're done with that now. Back on full throttle.
Yeah.
Back to the grind, back to the hamster wheel.
Yeah. And it's just our conditioning. And I worked with a coach in Europe, and I paid her 25,000 euro to work with her. And sometimes she would say, because her husband was also a coach, so they both coached me on growing my business and having more success in business. And I had a lot of success while working with them. And sometimes she'd say to me, my husband keeps asking me, why is Nora going so fast? She's already having so much success. And I remember thinking, I was so triggered by that question. I was like, I paid you 25,000 euro. Like, I'm going fast. I need to make this money back and I need to go further and I need a 10X and blah, blah. Like, I was really in that state. And now I look back, I shared the example that they're from Europe for a reason. They live a very slow paced life and they've had a lot of success in their business and they love what they do. But the culture they live in is to go a little slower. They live on an island in the Mediterranean. Like, they truly relish in the, what would I want to say?
Spirit of life.
In the romance of life, in the joie de vivre. Like, they truly just like love that. And then they looked at me, this American girl in Los Angeles, having just moved from New York City, being like, go, 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 we got to go. And now years later, I look at that and I'm like, oh, I get what they were saying, because I unfortunately made the mistake of building something very successful. And then I burnt out and I was like, wait, I started my own business to have more freedom and to love my job and to love my career. And I feel like I want to run from it.
You lost that, right? You lost it in the grind and in the thinking. Yeah. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
I think you're not alone in that. I think everyone experiences that in some way.
Totally. And then I really that moment of surrender and letting it go and being like, okay, I can't do this by myself. I do need some support from something outside of me. And who am I? The same questions I ask my clients. And why am I here? I reconnected with my why, I reconnected with my values. And now my business has grown way faster and way more successfully. And I have way more freedom and way more happiness because I connected and slowed down. So yeah, I think like you said, everyone kind of has this experience, but I think it's the key to everything. It's to slow down and reconnect with ourselves.
For anyone who's listening who thinks we're going a little woo-woo in the wrong direction, give us some practical steps, because Nora lives in Los Angeles, guys. Okay. So it's not like she's living in Bali and we're talking about resting and relaxing all day. She's a successful businesswoman. She lives in LA. She's young, she's hustling, but she's still been able to find this balance. So give us, give me your routine. Give me some specific practical tips in your routine that people can utilize in the environment that they live in.
Totally. Okay. So my routine, I wake up around 5:30. I meditate for 30 minutes right after I wake up. I meditate in bed while I'm lying down. A lot of people don't recommend that, but for me, that is such a low bar of entry that like, I can't say no to it. So even when I'm really tired and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can hardly open my eyes, I still just click my Joe Dispenza morning meditation and I listen to it. And he has you focus on what do you want in the future, so that I'm not waking up and repeating my same thoughts from the past. Most people think around 70,000 thoughts a day, and 90% of their thoughts are the same as yesterday. And they wonder why they can't get out of this rut, or they can't get over their ex, or they can't change this pattern in their business. So my way of doing that is every morning waking up, doing my morning meditation for 30 minutes and focusing on the future and what I really want. After I do that, I journal with the 5-minute journal for 3 minutes, just 3 things I'm grateful for, what would make today great, and then an affirmation of who I am. Highly recommend that journal. I think it's another quick state change that takes 3 minutes. And then I go to the gym. I work at a Gold's Gym. I freaking love it. I love moving my body. I love seeing the sun come up because that gym is both indoor and outdoor. So I try to work out outside to see the sun. And then I come home and make my breakfast and start work. So it's not like you said, I'm not like in Bali meditating 24/7, but I do know the balance. And I do know that when I don't meditate, when I don't do my 5-minute journal, when I don't work out in the morning, I start to feel like shit a few days later. And that's my time that I get to go slow. I'm intentional with how I do things in the in-between. So when I'm eating, for example, I eat really slowly. When I'm driving and I can feel like, oh, I'm running late, I like take 5 big deep breaths and I'm like, you're going to get there when you're supposed to get there. It's okay. So it's less about what I'm doing and more about how I do it. And really trying to slow my breath down in every moment that I can to remind myself I'm safe, I'm good. And the science behind that is when your autonomic nervous system feels safe, you're a lot more able to think creatively, connect with others. Again, it's called the social engagement phase of polyvagal theory for our science people. And when you're in that part of your nervous system, when your nervous system feels safe enough to engage with others, that's where the magic happens, both socially, both creativity, both business-wise. But when you're in fight, flight, freeze, appease mode, you're in survival mode, and the results you'll get are survival results. AKA, if you build your business from survival mode, the result of your business is going to be survival mode. You're not going to enjoy it. If you build your business from, hey, I feel really safe, I feel really creative, I really feel really smart with that, the results are going to have the same results.
I love it. I want to share another thing too, because I think that the science behind the vagus nerve and our nervous system, I think, is really underrated. And I think you can hijack it with meditation, but I've recently experienced a overactive nervous system, me personally. And I started to realize that the things I was consuming was not in support of a relaxed nervous system. So I eradicated caffeine from my diet, which was really hard for me. Sugar, anything that's inflammatory. And there's something to be said about that, because I think and I've talked about this a lot with some friends and things like that. And people are like, what are you talking about? There's no way I can get rid of coffee. Well, if you're all hyped up and stressed and wound up all the time, and coffee ain't helping. And man, do I love coffee. So I am not here promoting negative coffee, but it's just interesting how things in our life, whether it's mental, physical, things that we can control, are affecting our nervous system in a really hyperactive way.
I gave up coffee a month ago, and I love coffee, but I was the exact same way. I was like, dang, I'm feeling way more anxious than I normally do. I'm doing all my things. It's not working. And then I was like, okay, let's try. It's powerful to use your own body and your own life as a way to test out results. I think it makes it fun, right? And so I was like,
yes.
I'm gonna give up coffee, and I just did matcha instead. My anxiety has gone from probably a level 6 to a level 1.
Yeah, me too.
It's wild the difference it made. And I was so angry and resistant to stop doing it, but it wasn't because someone told me to give up coffee. It was because I love myself so much that I was like, okay, girl, something's going on. I don't really like what's going on here. Let's try to figure out a different option.
I love it. We could talk for another hour or so. I want to ask a few more questions as we wrap up here. What is something you're really working on yourself right now? Deep, like what's showing up for you that you really need to work on yourself right now?
Oh my gosh, good question. What is something the slowing down part is a constant check-in. Yeah. Because the way I'm built is go really freaking fast and have as much success. I want to say that again.
Slow down.
Yeah, is to go really fast and have as much success as possible. That's why I'm a success coach. That's why I work with successful people. That's why I love to help people gain success in certain areas of their life. But it's a daily practice of like, oh wait, Nora, it's okay to take a break. It's okay to slow down. And if anything, that recharges your system. So last night I was working until 8 p.m. I was filming some videos for some of my clients. My parents are in Malibu right now. They're camping. They love to camp. They have like this motorhome. They're like a van life couple right now. It's so funny and so cute. And they were like, come stay the night with us. And I was like, oh, that's 30 minutes away. I started getting really stressed about it. And then I was like, Nora, what? It's 30 minutes away. It's your parents. You love them. And so I stopped working, went out to spend the night with them. I went on a morning walk with my dad this morning. I got to see the sunrise. I got to listen to music that I love. And my cup was overflowing. That makes the biggest difference. So what I'm working on is just continually reminding myself, you can slow down, and again, slow down to speed up.
For you, what does it mean to live a rich life?
To live a free life.
Rich. Oh yeah. Okay.
To fully feel like I am free to be me 24/7. So whenever certain parts of me want to come up, if I'm angry, I let myself be angry. If I'm sad, I let myself be sad. If I'm happy, I let myself be happy. That to me is a fully rich life.
So good. I honor you for everything you're doing. Thanks for setting the example for us. Keep doing the hard work, girl.
Let's go. Thank
I
you for
really
having me.
appreciate it. If anyone wants to connect to you and reach out, what's the best way to connect?
Just my Instagram at Nora Dekeyser, NoraDekeyser. Message me if you have any questions about this. I love what I do, whether I work with clients actually one-on-one or if I can just talk to you for 2 minutes and support you getting one step closer towards your goal. I'm obsessed with that. That's why I love what I do.
Well, thanks so much. I love it.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.